I would, as a leader, many times over, pick a rep who closed half of their target and the customer stayed over a rep who always met their target, but half those customers left. It is a night and day decision. The SaaS industry, software as a service industry, is huge. And I've got a couple of numbers here just anchored in because you could not be picking a better time to be learning how to sell technology. And I emphasize that because over the next 10 years, conservative estimates predict software as a service growing to 800 billion in sales. So to put that into context, that is not only just the fastest growing technology segment, but it means to get there, we need 250,000 additional sales professionals. So these are sales professionals who aren't yet selling technology, who aren't yet selling SaaS. So that's not even including things like rockets and solar panels and telecom. This is just business software. So this is a great market to be getting into for the next decade. David, you had that great question about some of the trends, and I'm going to touch base on this again, but that idea of business software becoming even more prevalent, this is a fantastic time. And I think one of the best evidences of it is that when you look at the software companies or any businesses that did well during the global pandemic, business software was very high up on the list. And a lot of those companies, I mean, you look at Shopify, they doubled their sales. You take a look at Zoom, they're off the charts. You take a look at Microsoft, all of these big software companies have very resilient businesses. They'll be hiring a lot of sales staff. So this is a great time for you to get into it. This little picture on the right is a metaphor for what business software is. And we often hear what counts as B2B SaaS, what is it? And if you think about this image on the right as a metaphor for a company, every company puts their customers at the center. And their different functions always surround that customer. Maybe it's their product group who's building product, and you can see a little pentagon at the top. Maybe it's the sales and marketing groups. There's a couple down here. Well, there's really two varieties of business software. Some of it helps somebody in a department do their job better. So an example would be if you're in the marketing group, maybe part of your job is creating and posting ads. There is business software to help you do that more effectively. You know, software to help you design better ads, test better ads, get the ads to more people, just to do your job as a marketer better. And the people in the other departments, the folks in product, the folks in operations, never see it. There is also business software that helps two groups or more connect. So let's imagine that someone in the product group has to say, we built a new feature, we built some new technology, and now I need to tell marketing to go advertise it. That process, going from product to marketing, there is business software that helps that flow. Literally, there is business software that helps product teams summarize what they just built to give it to marketing so that marketing can do their job faster. And if it feels overwhelming, like there's all these departments, they all have dozens of things to do. They have dozens of interactions. All of these lines, all of these boxes represent many possible tools. That's very accurate. And yes, the business software space can feel overwhelming because there are tens of thousands of creators of business software. And I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off right away. You don't need to know them all. So very often people get anxious about what tools am I going to learn? What am I going to use? Will I know HubSpot, SalesLoft, Chorus, Gong, Sales Hub? Don't worry about it. I'm going to explain why and give you an example. So let's dig into just one of these. So imagine just sales, not even considering the interactions, not considering any of the other departments. Let's look at just the software in this sales bucket. Here's a picture of a landscape. And you can see here the hundreds upon hundreds of individual logos and companies in there. Don't worry, you don't need to find Anybody? I'll spoil the surprise right here in the center. If you can see my mouse moving, you can see kite in there. You don't need to know these tools. You really don't. I share this a little bit for the shock factor. The fact that there are all of these tools. Some of these are companies you might end up working for. These are definitely tools you'll end up using. You'll end up maybe selling competitive products to these. And these change all the time, which means there's very little value in being an expert on the tools. Because if even 10% of these change, you're not going to know them. There's a famous landscape. So this one, if I remember right, I think they have something like 700 logos here. The marketing landscape is a little bit further along. I think they've got 5,000 logos on. Sorry, I think they call it the marketing 5,000, but there's 7,500 logos on it now. It's pretty ridiculous. So these landscapes, they can help you understand the different types of software. Like the ones in one box are a little bit different than the ones in the other, but you don't need to memorize them. The reason there's so many though is because the way business software is sold is different and very, very effective. You can run a very effective business in it. And now I want to shift a little bit into that thinking, because this will help you as you envision your next role. Has anybody here ever, just kind of raise your hand, have you ever gone into a store and bought software, like maybe tax software, bought like that box, from like a business store, or maybe you bought a video game or something? You see a couple of hands, yeah. What you're experiencing right there is the way software was traditionally sold. And this next slide talks a little bit about the difference between software as a service and enterprise software. Oh, let me not pull Nancy's landscape. Let me make sure that I stick with our material. There we go. That's what I get for pulling up more than one resource at a time. When you buy a video game, when you buy your tax planning software, what you're buying is something kind of like this diagram, this diagram on the left. So that orange represents how much the company spent to attract you as a customer. They posted some advertising, some videos on YouTube. They got some people to do reviews. They got that box packaged. They shipped it to a store. They spent all their money in advance. And then when you drop $70, $100, if it's enterprise level software, 15 grand, they get all that money at the same time. And then they get nothing else until maybe a year later, they sell you a bit of downloadable content or an update or an enhancement. That's a very traditional model. And the company is rewarded at the time of sale. But as you could see, you get this big spend at the beginning, this big spike, and then nothing. Business software, software as a service, is sold more like the graph on the right. They still incur that upfront spend because they're advertising, they're building the software, they pay a commission, but the customer pays a subscription. And so if you've ever subscribed to a game with a monthly fee or Office 365 or something like that, something where you're paying that subscription, you're interacting with a business more like this on the right. Now, Sohail, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to add that those costs are also ongoing because many of these companies invest in research and development and ongoing technical support, etc. So they have to factor that cost in as well.
Somewhat. It's a really, really good point. An interesting thing to consider though, if you've bought the software today, really you're buying it because you see the value today. Most people, most businesses aren't going to give you money now in hopes that you have a feature in a year. So all of the costs you've spent previously are really the cost of those goods. And if a company is run really well, the ongoing costs, like the amount of support and the kind of internet costs and the server costs, are very, very small. Usually they're in the order of like 5% of the subscription fee. So yes, there is an ongoing cost, but it should be minimal if a company's run well. Yeah, very, very valid point. The interesting part though, for your roles as sales reps is this shape is very different from the shape on the left. Now, why this is important is it changes the motivation of your leaders. And that's really why I want to emphasize it. In the model on the left, as a leader, I want my sales reps to close a deal because we get the revenue right away. They pay a commission. We all win. High fives. You ring a bell. In the model on the right, yes, I want my reps to close deals, but we need those customers to stick around. So the right deals are actually significantly more important. Another way to look at it, I would, as a leader, many times over, pick a rep who closed half of their target and the customer stayed over a rep who always met their target, but half those customers left. It is a night and day decision. So in software as a service, it's not the same burning need to hit the sales target. The burning need is to sell solutions to the right customer.